3 lifelong friends, 6 trusty balls, and endless NFL takes. Welcome to 3 Guys, 6 Balls NFL Podcast.
Welcome to episode 17 of 3 Guys, 6 Balls NFL Podcast. There's been some breaking news in the NFL. The Pittsburgh Steelers have traded Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Miami Dolphins in exchange for Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. So I want to hear you guys' thoughts on this. What do you guys think? Who do you think won this trade?
We also traded the fifth and the seventh, right? The Steelers gave up a fifth
pick swap
for the Dolphins seventh, which those picks don't mean nothing, but essentially they're nothing. Although fifth round gets you Shedeur Sanders, so there's that. I love this trade for the Steelers. They appear to be going all in right now. They got Aaron Rodgers. He's pretty much said that this is his last year, so he's done after this one. So I mean, it's pretty much, we don't care about the money. We're just going to do it for 1 year and see what we can get out of it. So maybe this is Mike Tomlin's swan song too. Maybe he's going to take this winner right off into the sunset in his best shot.
It's going to be fun to watch Mike Tomlin ride off into the sunset, losing out after the first playoff game. That's just what the Steelers do. They haven't won a playoff game in 9 years.
Oh, I like the trade. Honestly, I like it for both teams, just switching it up. I think that especially coming to the last year of a contract, I think that the Steelers got the better end. I really like Jonnu Smith. You don't hear much about him, or I just don't hear much about him, but I think he's really good. He's a really good talent, and I think that Jalen Ramsey is a better defensive back than Minkah Fitzpatrick, so I think the Steelers got the better end of the deal, but I think neither team got fleeced.
If you think about it, they got rid of George Pickens, so you've got one solid wide receiver, so you're going to run one wide receiver, 2 tight ends, and you've got Jaylen Warren in your backfield, right? He's still back there. So you're kind of committing to the run, and Aaron Rodgers has kind of always been that way. He's a run-first, old-school kind of guy. Run-first, play action over the top. So one receiver, 2 tight end, and your running back there. It's gonna. I would not be surprised if you saw, I don't know, I can't even think of a good fullback that would be on the move. But I would not be surprised to see them bring in another running back or some other smaller guy to go alongside DK Metcalf. I think they're committing to more of an Aaron Rodgers play style. That's what the Jets didn't do. They wanted him to be the full spread option guy and the full, not spread option itself, but this spread formation guy and to sling the ball everywhere. And he's at a point in his career where he just can't do that as much. He has to hand the ball off. He has to dump off the tight ends. He has to do all of those sorts of things. And so they're adjusting for it. I'm kind of excited to see what the Steelers do. It could be some legitimate old-school football at this point.
It is exciting to see Aaron Rodgers. I mean, because I think, isn't he said that this is his last year?
Yeah.
Or like hinted at it, at least. I think it's nice that it's like, hey.
Apparently.
Yeah. Because he could do a little Brett Favre action there. If he's going to the Steelers and they obviously knew he was going to go, I think at that point you kind of have to just center your team around him being there. Otherwise, it's just a wash of a year. It's like, why bring on this quarterback in the tail end of the twilight of his career if you're not going to, make it work with him. So I think if he's kind of calling some shots, I won't say calling shots, but at least has a little bit more of control over the personnel, I think that's solid, at least for Aaron Rodgers especially.
I don't know if he had control over the personnel necessarily, but I think that just regardless of if Aaron Rodgers was their quarterback or not, they had to get some sort of other weapon on offense because you got Freiermuth and you have DK Metcalf, but outside of that, you've got Calvin Austin. So they had to get somebody else on offense. And Jonnu Smith, even though he's listed as a tight end, I think they're actually going to use him kind of as a tight end wide receiver hybrid type of guy, use him in the slot because he's kind of a smaller tight end. So he doesn't fit the traditional tight end mold. So I think they're going to use him in that hybrid role a little bit. Last season, he had 88 catches for 884 yards and 8 touchdowns. So he has a good offensive weapon. I think they won this trade. I like aspects of it for the Dolphins, but I think the Steelers overall won this trade. Everybody can't believe that they traded Minkah Fitzpatrick, and they're saying why would you trade one of the best safeties in the league? I think he's extremely overrated. He is very good at run defense. He's a guy who's willing to meet those bigger backs in the hole, make the tackle. He's a very good run defender, but he is extremely overrated when it comes to coverage. I watched a highlight video, and I don't know if you guys watched it. I sent it to you, but I watched this highlight video of Minkah Fitzpatrick's interceptions from the seasons where he had 5 or 6 interceptions. Almost all of them are off of tip balls, dropped passes, or where the quarterback's just overthrowing the receiver because it was just a terrible pass. Most of his interceptions are not because he's actually good at coverage.
He's like the Chicharito of football. Even though I guess Chicharito does play football, but soccer. He's a Mexican player, and everyone says I'll ask people. This was back when I was in Mexico. This was like 10 years ago. And I asked, because everyone was wearing his jersey, I'm like, is he a good player? And they're like, yeah, he's good at getting the ball in the goal. I'm like, so he's good, right? Like, yeah, he gets the ball in the goal. And you watch, after I got back, I watched highlights, and he just happens to be in the right spot all the time. And so it's like, you could say it's like he's lucky. You could also say has great positioning and foresight. But either way, he's not a great player, but he does score a lot of goals. So I see it kind of the same way here, where it's like, yeah, I mean, if you can keep this luck up where everyone's tipping balls to you, like, you're great. But otherwise, you're never out there heat-seeking these balls.
Yeah, but he hasn't had he's had one interception in the last 2 seasons. But just a couple seasons before that, he had 6 interceptions, and I think the season before that, he had 5. So he just happened to be in the right spot at the right time, just because receivers couldn't catch, or a defender on the defensive line tipped the ball up in the air, and he just was in the back and just ran up and picked it off. So I don't think he's actually that good of a coverage player. So the Steelers were 8th worst in passing yards allowed last season, and so they had to get better at defending the pass. And so this offseason, they went and got Darius Slay, and now they've traded for Jalen Ramsey, and neither of those corners are in their prime, but they're definitely going to be better than what they were last season defending the pass. So I think the Steelers won this trade both because of their defensive move and because of their offensive move.
I mean, yeah, I agree. I think the player I was thinking about was they also have Robert Woods. And like you said, they don't have a lot of good other options at wide receiver. Like you said, Calvin Austin. They've got Robert Woods they brought in. Notably, they also picked up, in the undrafted free agency pool, they picked up a fullback, DJ Thomas Jones. They picked up a fullback as an undrafted free agent, which is kind of feeding into more of the narratives. Obviously, we don't know if he's going to make the team or not, but it feeds into more of the narrative of like, well, they're gonna buckle down and commit to old Jerome Bettis style Pittsburgh Steelers football.
And they drafted Caleb Johnson out of Iowa.
Right.
I mean, he's used to carrying an offense. That's basically what he did at Iowa. He was the only good player on that offense.
You cannot call Iowa having an offense.
He was the offense.
He was the offense, but like
he was the best player on that team.
Yes.
He was, by far.
Well, the punter has an argument there. He got the most use, that's for sure.
That doesn't mean he's the best, though.
Well,
he's a football player.
You're right. He's a guy who plays football.
He is a player who plays football.
He got recruited, and now he's in the NFL.
I can't wait till next draft season so we can say that again.
Let's not wish for next offseason already, okay? We're in this offseason,
We've been
struggling through it.
Well,
we haven't even gotten to a season yet.
We all know what's going to happen. The Cowboys are going to suck, and if they do make the playoffs, they're losing the first round, and somehow the Chiefs are going to be in the Super Bowl. We might as well just skip to next offseason already.
Nope.
I'm going to be honest. I hope they either just win and you guys just enjoy it along the way, or they don't get anywhere. But I don't want to hear you guys, oh, well, they're going to lose the next game. Oh, well, they're going to lose the next game. All the way up to the Super Bowl. Well, this is going to be embarrassing because now we got to lose in the Super Bowl, so we're going to hear from everybody. And then you win. It's like, well, they're probably just going to trade away all their good players.
Hey, if we make it to the Super Bowl, I'll be excited until they lose the Super Bowl, and then you'll hear about it.
Yeah. Let me tell you.
That's what I'm saying.
I will be real about the Cowboys all season long. I will be rooting along with them and telling my heartbreak stories along the way. I have no issues with the Cowboys doing well, but I have no expectations for them to do well. But if they end up doing well, I'm not going to be like, well, this is just by chance, no way. I can commend them for doing well. Hey, you guys did great. Good job. I can be positive. I don't like to, but I can be.
It takes a lot of energy.
Being a Cowboys fan really sucks the life out of you.
As you're wearing a Steelers jersey.
Yep. Why do you think I'm wearing it? All right, so we're going to get on to our next segment. We're going to play a little game. We're going to play a game of overrated or underrated. So I got a couple guys here for you. Before we do that, though, I want to give a shout out to Cheeseheads and the Bear podcasts, because this is where I got the idea to do these games. They do these games all the time, so shout out to them. And also shout out to the Honolulu Cheese podcast, because they just did a full show on overrated or underrated. So just wanted to give them a quick shout out also.
That's a lot of player knowledge. Good for them.
It is. Yeah. It wasn't just players, though. There was certain things like going to a game in person versus watching it on the TV at home, that kind of thing. So it was a good episode.
That's a fun. We should talk about that one day. Let's talk about that in the middle of November. After we've gone to the one. Yeah. There it is. Put it on your spreadsheet. Fill out the show notes.
All right, so I've got two players here for you guys. So the first one is Packers quarterback Jordan Love. Is he overrated or underrated?
I really like Jordan Love. I think that he came in with next to no expectations following Aaron Rodgers. He's the guy that pissed Aaron Rodgers off and pushed him out of Green Bay. He's the guy that came in and drafted him in the first round, although nobody really knew why, and he didn't have a lot of high expectations coming out of college, in my opinion, as not a real Packers fan. And so he's done nothing but perform, I would say, above expected, in my opinion. I would actually say he's underrated. I think I had him listed on my top 10 quarterbacks list. I really like Jordan Love. I think he's made the best out of a terrible situation. I think that he is underrated in the grand scheme of quarterbacks.
What do you think, Avery?
I hesitate to say either. I don't think he's necessarily underrated. I definitely don't think he's overrated. I guess I would have to say underrated. I think he's produced a lot for how little people give him credit. Might just be because of the team's overall performance. But, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of him, but at the same time, I've seen what he can produce, and I'm thinking, like, all right, maybe he's one of these guys that just breaks out, but I could also kind of see him being, like, one of those Kirk Cousins guys, like that little bit of the journeyman, whereas, like, you know, he'll have some little flashes in some places, but never really come onto the scene as far as, I don't know. I guess I don't ever see him becoming any top 5 or, like, top 8 quarterback.
I would agree with that. I think I would personally put him like you said, like he's not really underrated, but he's not really overrated. But if I had to choose one, I would go with overrated actually. And the reason why is because just regardless of his stats, he's made the playoffs. He's got a 1-2 record in the playoffs, but his one playoff win is against the Cowboys, which basically means you haven't won a playoff game. As an overall starter, he's 18-15. So that's middle of the pack. Like that's a mid quarterback. And then against
one of those games was his rookie year. I mean,
true. Okay. But
yeah,
still.
You're right.
And then against the NFC North, he's 5-7. He can't win games in his division. I know he can still make the playoffs without winning games in his division, but in his division, he's got a losing record. And the other reason I think that he's a little bit overrated is because I do talk to a lot of Packers fans, and it's kind of the same thing as how I feel about like Caleb Williams with Bears fans. They just overhype this guy like an insane amount. I'm a Cowboys fan, and I don't think I've ever said Dak Prescott is a top quarterback. Even when he was second in MVP voting, I don't think I ever was like, you know, Dak Prescott is that guy. And I just feel like Packers fans do that a lot with Jordan Love, even though he hasn't done anything except for beat the Cowboys, which again, basically doesn't count.
Is a given.
When it comes
it's just going to happen. Yeah.
It is.
It kind of is, actually.
Doesn't matter who the quarterback is, who the players are, who the coach is. If the team's even there, they're still going to beat the Cowboys somehow.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially if you can moderately run the ball. He had a bit of a drop-off last year versus 20. So he's totally started for 2 years now, 2023, 2024. And last year he did miss 2 games. You have to take that into account. But he had a bit of a drop-off. He threw 4,100 yards in 23. He threw 3,300 yards, almost 3,400 yards in 24. He threw 8 less touchdowns last year than the year before, but the same amount of interceptions. So, I mean, his touchdown percentage went down 25-11 versus 32-11, but he also played 2 less games. What you don't like to see is your technically 4-year veteran, I guess you would call him, 2-year starter, already missing time at getting hurt. Especially a guy he's not really a runner, but he's more of a pocket passer, which is honestly kind of why I like him. Man, rushing yards in his career, he's got 356. Not what I would call a lot, especially nowadays for quarterbacks. So he's definitely trying to stand in the pocket and throw the ball more. I know, I like him. And if you're not in Green Bay, you don't have to hear about him all the time. I couldn't imagine being a non-Packers fan in the Wisconsin area. I bet you hate Jordan Love. But everywhere else, you never have to hear about him. So I think he's underrated.
That's a good point. It's all kind of a matter of perspective.
Right. Like, that's why I don't like the 49ers or the Seahawks. I'm neither one of their fans, and I live in the Northwest, and so I just have to hear about him all the time.
I don't think any of us like the 49ers or Seahawks.
I hate them more than
Avery
you guys
doesn't
do.
like anybody.
The Broncos have been kind of growing on me. It's probably just because of
Bo Nix.
And
it's just like you with Drew
Franklin.
Brees and the Saints.
Yeah, I like Sean Payton. I'm a big Sean Payton guy.
Yeah, it's common denominator right there.
I'm excited to watch them.
All right, so next guy, Commanders wide receiver Deebo Samuel. Overrated or underrated?
Maybe I'll let you go first this time. All right,
So I think I'm going to go ahead and say overrated.
Yes.
One, because it has nothing to do with the Commanders. I just don't like the 49ers, and that's where he's been his whole career. However, that has really little to do with this. I just think his production's kind of dropped off. You could say maybe it's just the team situation. I see quarterback stats as kind of the most consistent. Then I see maybe running backs, then wide receivers, then some like defensive players. As an example, like interceptions. Interceptions aren't a great indicator of how well you do. You know, if you're a great corner and they just never throw to you, like you're just not going to get much. And it's kind of the same deal with like wide receivers. Like Tyreek Hill isn't a bad receiver. He had bad numbers last year. It's because his quarterback was gone. And so like sometimes there's just personnel issues that get in the way of production, especially if you're a receiver that's dependent on so many other things in order to produce. That being said, I don't care, and I still think he's overrated.
I like it. What do you think, Will?
I would agree with Avery here. I think that he is also overrated. It's probably because he was on the 49ers, and I don't like the 49ers. But I also am a big fantasy football guy, and he underperforms in fantasy football every single year.
He was on my team last year, and I was extremely frustrated with him.
Yeah, and that's not fair to judge a player by that. That's not fair to anybody. But that's the way life works when you're a football fan. You're going to judge people based off of their fantasy football performance, so get over it, pal. I don't know. I don't think his production is as good as his mouth is loud. And maybe that's the wrong way to word that.
That's for sure.
That's
for sure.
I think that people like Jamar Chase are allowed to be loud, obnoxious, and people like Justin Jefferson are allowed to, and even at one point in his career, Aaron Rodgers, they're allowed to put up a stink about things because Aaron Rodgers was a 4-time MVP. I don't think all of them were in a row, but at least multiple of them were in a row. And I think that when you are going to be that good, you're allowed to have that much attitude. And he has not been that good to have that much attitude.
Yeah, he's not hot enough to be that crazy. You have to be hot
You're
enough
right. You are absolutely right. That's...
No one likes a 6 with an attitude. It's bad. It's a bad look.
You're not wrong.
In 2021, he was a 9 with an attitude. And it was like, I don't like the 49ers, but like, you put up, 1,400 yards as a receiver. Like, all right, you can talk a little bit, but 600? Sub 700 yards?
Yeah. That was his one good season of his career. He's had one truly good season of his career. I would agree with you guys. I think Deebo Samuel is one of the most overrated players.
He's only had 1,000-yard season his whole career.
If you combine it with his rushing yards, he's had more than that, but 1,000-yard receiving season.
Sure. If we're going to talk scrimmage yards, sure. But if you count scrimmage yards, he's only had 2,000-yard seasons.
If you roll over some of his high school yards, he had really good stats.
I bet he did. But Sorry, you go. You go.
That's kind of the reason why I think Deebo Samuel is extremely overrated. In 2024, he had 670 receiving yards, and he had 136 rushing yards. Deebo Samuel is apparently this great offensive weapon with those numbers. But let's say that you have a running back who has 670 rushing yards and 136 receiving yards. Is he a great offensive weapon, or is he just a mid-running back? That's just a backup running back.
Right. He also had 4 total touchdowns in 15 games and 2 fumbles. Let's not act like he's out here being a touchdown machine or, he's a red zone weapon. He's not. I don't know. I've never really looked into his stats in depth until this. And I am not a Deebo. I don't want him on any fantasy team ever again. He's hanging his hat on that one season, like we said. We had 1,700 scrimmage yards, 14 touchdowns. That's a great season, but your whole career can't be made out of one season. Doesn't work that way.
Let me ask both of you guys, and this might be a spreadsheet question. Now that he's with Jaden Daniels, how do you think his stats will look this upcoming season?
Probably about the same as last year.
I actually disagree with that.
603 touchdowns?
I think they go up, actually, because he's no longer the number one target. Now, he may not have been a true number one target in San Francisco, but Ayuk had significant attitude problems. You cover George Kittle with a safety. Christian McCaffrey you cover with a gurney because he's going to be in the hospital anyway. So you put one of your best corners on Deebo, and there it is. But in Washington, you can't do that. Your best guy has to go on Terry McLaurin. Has to. He's going to reap the benefit of being the number 2 wide receiver.
It's not going to be Luke McCaffrey?
No. I don't even know how else to say that. No.
Nah.
To go back to Deebo Samuel's stats, if you take his 2023 stats where he had 892 receiving yards and 225 rushing yards, if you reverse that and you put a running back in where he has 892 rushing yards and 225 receiving yards, that's just an average running back. There's literally no difference between Deebo Samuel and an average player at a different position. It's kind of like Travis Hunter. Honestly, like I personally feel like Travis Hunter is being overhyped because he can play two different positions. It's the same thing with Deebo Samuel. Because he can play two different positions, because he can play wide receiver and take snaps out of the backfield, he is this great offensive weapon. But if you get a player who can play running back and he catches passes because that's what running backs do, he's just an average running back if he puts up the same amount of same amount of yards. I personally think Deebo Samuel is one of the most overhyped players in the NFL. I actually put out a poll in our sports podcasters group on Instagram. And here's the question is I said, would you rather have a wide receiver with 700 receiving yards and 200 rushing yards, have a running back with 700 rushing yards or 200 receiving yards, or does it not matter because it's both the same production? I just put it out yesterday, so I didn't get as many votes as I would have liked to, but I got 10 total votes. 5 people said it doesn't matter because it's the same. 4 people said they'd rather have the running back, and 1 person said they'd rather have the receiver, which just proved my point that Deebo Samuel is way overhyped just because he can play two different positions and because he can get rushing yards as a receiver.
Yeah. It'd be like if you worked at a company and you worked 6 people's job, but still only output the amount of one person. It's like, cool, so you're doing a portion of all these 6 jobs. That doesn't mean you should get paid for 6 people. I mean, some people should. I do know some people that should. But, like, you can't do both at the same time.
Are you one of those people?
I do a lot of jobs.
Effectively?
I do, yeah. Some of them better than other people.
All right, let's move on to our next segment. We're going to talk a little bit about C.J. Stroud. What do you think of C.J. Stroud? Like, where would you rank C.J. Stroud as a quarterback?
Coleridge Bernard Stroud, huh? Yes, and it says actual.
I did not know
that is his actual name. Yeah.
What's worse? What's worse, that name or Patrick Mahomes' middle name of Levon?
Oh, Coleridge Bernard is worse than Patrick Levon.
Yeah.
Patrick Levon can have a career in the adult industry if you catch my drift.
And do a little
Coleridge Bernard.
R&B. Like,
you're right.
At a club.
Patrick Levon. You are right. What do you want to know, pal?
What do you think of him? Where would you rank him? Go ahead, Avery. Where would you rank C.J. Stroud as a quarterback?
14.
That's where I had him. 14.
No way, really?
Yeah, 14.
Oh, me too, guys. Wow, crazy. We're so cool
Go ahead and
together.
expand on why I decided to place him at 14?
Well, if you mean give you some stats, sure, I'd love to.
Oh, stat
Okay,
drop.
so this is a similar stat to the one I mentioned with Jordan Love. So in his career, C.J. Stroud is 19-13 as a starter, which is better than Jordan Love's record. However, he's 8-3 against the AFC South, so against the Jaguars, Colts, and Titans, which is one of the worst divisions in
worse
football.
division. Thank you.
One of the worst divisions in football. Against everyone else, he's 11-10. So he has a winning record. I mean, he has a winning record both, but like he's 8-3 against one of the worst divisions in the league, and then against everybody else, he's 11-10. He's a extremely average winner against everyone else, aside from against his division.
Extremely average.
He's extremely average. He can't win against other teams that aren't in his division. So that's why I would rank him at 14.
That kind of goes, I mean, that's basically, it's just middle of the pack. I do like that he's been able to produce. It's not like he's some liability quarterback. I just think that, I mean, he's on the Texans, so I think they've just got a lot of other things to sort out. I wouldn't say that he's kind of doomed to stay that middle of the road. I think a different situation, an entirely different situation could prove to be something really good for him. If he goes to a place that's got some good weapons and it allows him to kind of, relax a little bit more. I'm not saying he's not relaxed, but I think it could change. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback or that he has a low ceiling. I just don't know how high that ceiling goes. But right now, he's just right in the middle.
When everybody talks about his sophomore slump, how he did worse last year, but really, he played 2 more games, so you have to take that into account, and he threw for, 400 less yards, while also playing 2 less games. So there's some extrapolation.
2 more games.
Two more games, excuse me, thank you. He also threw for less touchdowns and more interceptions. But a lot of that comes from maybe
He's sacked 54 times.
Well, yeah, maybe this is just an excuse, but his rookie year, 2 years ago, nobody had any actual film on him. And then by the time his sophomore year comes around, everybody has film on him. They They know what he's going to do. Theoretically, they know his tendencies. You micro-analyze every part of his game, and so you're able to just pick it apart easier. So I think there's a little bit of that going on to where he's trying to figure out how to overcome them overcoming him. I expect the same thing to Jaden Daniels this year. People are going to get his tendencies and figure out how to stop him. I legitimately expect him to have a slump because he's still learning to become a professional. And so your first year, nobody has any idea. You're this hotshot all-star. Your second year, you get into a slump. And your third year, you learn how to be a professional and you learn how to outplay the game that they're playing.
No one cares what you think, Will. Now he cut off, so it's my turn. No, I think C.J. Stroud, I think he's basically reiterating what I was saying before, but basically he's not in a great division, but it's still not an excuse to not be performing better against the other teams. And when you're 11-10, you're not really going anywhere. It's the same deal with teams that aren't making the playoffs and aren't also getting any high draft picks where you're just kind of stuck in that middle spot. I feel like if I was a Texans fan, I would just want I would just want to shake the whole thing up because it feels like we're just kind of stuck. Feels like they're kind of stuck in this extreme mediocrity where they can't really get out. They're never the bottom of the barrel. They're never really any like real contender. I think they made the playoffs recently, but even then, just nothing serious. So average.
One thing I do want to say about CJ Stroud, to kind of put a positive note in here about him, is he has led his team to the playoffs in both of his seasons, and he's won a playoff game in both of those seasons. So he's at least been able to win a playoff game when he's made the playoffs in both years. So just something positive to say about CJ Stroud is that he's been able to lead his team there and he's been able to win a playoff game each year. But I still just think that he is an average quarterback. And to go back to the sacks thing, he was sacked 54 times last year. But you look at other quarterbacks like Joe Burrow, who still performed when he was sacked 48 times. Jaden Daniels was sacked 50 times. Jalen Hurts was sacked 45 times. They were all sacked a lot, and they still performed. I just don't feel like it is kind of an excuse, but it's not really an excuse.
Right. I kind of piggyback off that and kind of go into what Avery said as well. I think it's almost a negative. I mean, not making the playoffs is never really a negative. He's made the playoffs 2 of his 2 years in the NFL, but he's almost hindering himself, right? That team's going to get better slowly because they keep making the playoffs, so they don't get a high draft pick. And not that the high draft pick guarantees your team getting better, but if you're stuck in the first round or wild card and you're out, make the playoffs, host a game, and you're losing the wild card round, or you go on the road or whatever, if you're winning 1 or 2 playoff games, or 1 or 0 playoff games a year, you're picking in the 20 to 25 range, 20 to 28 range. And it's just not, you're going to get better slower. And that's just going to be a problem overall.
I do like the pieces they've put around him at receiver, but I'm questioning their offensive line a little bit. There's a high chance that could be worse this season.
Well, yeah, they gave away Laramie Tunsil and I think somebody else. I don't remember who, but their offensive line did not get better over the offseason.
I agree. So we'll see how it goes for CJ Stroud in year 3. But as of right now, I ranked him 14. Avery ranked him 14. And Will, where would you rank him, Will?
Well, clearly 14, obviously.
Yeah, you better not disagree with us on this.
He's the 14th best quarterback in the NFL. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, let's go with that. On average, obviously.
All right, so on to our last segment of the show. We've all put together our list of top 5 wide receiver duos heading into this season. And so, Will, let's start with you before your camera cuts out for the 10th time of this episode.
Yeah, if it cuts out, we're just going to keep rolling, and you'll just see a black picture of me, and I'm sorry, everybody.
Just remember what he looks like.
Just remember this face.
So, yeah, give us your list, and then Avery and I will chime in if we have anything to say as we're going through your list here.
So, in order, I've got, first and foremost, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And I think they need to be first because they have proven themselves, right? They are a proven duo. There it goes. I'm still moving. We're still going here. They, regardless of how bad that defense gets, that offense continues to produce and continues to do well. So I've got them at number 1. Number 2, I've got Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. That Lions offense is incredibly high-powered, and those 2 guys are somehow they're making Jared Goff look like an absolute all-star, and it is wonderful. I like watching both of them play. Number 3, I've got A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. I think those 2 now Super Bowl winners, and they had to do it a lot more than people were thinking because the Chiefs shut down Saquon Barkley in the Super Bowl, and they made Jalen Hurts throw the ball. And that's what he did. He threw the ball and he made it work. I like those two as a pair. This 4 and 5 here, and again, those three are all proven pairs. They've done it consistently, and there's no signs of them not continuing to do it. So I think that they are proven pairs that are going to continue to work well. One pair that I'm excited for more than anything else, and this is where my Cowboys bias comes in, is CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. I am truly excited for what they have. I wanted to rank them higher, but it was hard to rank them over proven sets of receivers who have shown out year after year at this point. And at number 5, I've got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. It doesn't seem to matter who's quarterback there, whether it was, what's the guy eating the dubs? Jameis Winston or Baker Mayfield. They are
about Tom Brady.
You're right. I did forget about Tom Brady. There was a guy in between them. Tom Brady, those two.
He's forgettable.
Yeah, he's pretty mediocre, pretty CJ Stroud, very mid, number 14 or so. I mean, Mike Evans has 10 straight 1,000-yard seasons?
11.
Oh, excuse me, 11. Don't mean to shortchange the guy. But more so, people talk about, especially fantasy-wise, they talk about Chris Godwin. Oh, I got to get Chris Godwin. He's this, that, and the other. And so when you've got two guys in your team that are consistently putting up high fantasy numbers like that, there's no way not to rank them in the top 5 to me.
Wait, so did you leave Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison off?
I did. They didn't even make my honorable mention list.
Oh.
That's probably wrong of me, but I don't think of Jordan Addison as... I mean, he's a great number 2. There's no way to deny it. I don't view him the same as I view the others. Maybe I'm wrong.
How do you view Justin Jefferson, though? Like, where would you rank him?
I think... he's number 2 wide receiver in the league, in my opinion. I think it goes Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson.
That's fair, I guess.
Thanks for validating my opinion.
All right, Avery, give us your top 5 wide receiver duos.
All right. To start it off, you got to go with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins.
I got one. Nice.
Jamar Chase won the triple crown for the receivers, most receptions, most yards, most touchdowns. Just already right there. Whoever he's paired with, that's got to be one, in my opinion. I don't think I have to say too much more about that. I think number 2, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, won the Super Bowl. Crazy good receivers. I think you got to put them in there. They actually met the season goal, unlike any other duo of receivers. 3, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. I think those 3, honestly, in my opinion, maybe you shuffle around based on what your criteria is, but I think those 3 duos are up there. My next ones are a little different. Number 4, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Ooh, I like that. I do like that.
Okay.
Now, they did not have a good season last year, and I think we all know why. I know why, because I had to watch it every single week of Tyreek Hill not being thrown the ball. But I am separating that. I am separating the quarterback. We're not talking about a trio here, 2 wide receivers, quarterback. I'm talking about 2 wide receivers. You put them on any team with a functioning quarterback, they're going to crush it.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. They are just insanely fast. I think both of them are still prime. I don't know about Tyreek as much. He might be a little bit over the hill, but he's still very effective. And my 5th is Drake London and Darnell Mooney.
You're kidding.
Nope.
That's who I have at 5.
Shut up! I thought you were going to get on me for saying that. I thought you were going to get on me being like, seriously, that's who?
I thought you were going to do the same thing to me. That's my number 5.
Wild. The reason, well... I'm sure you have an actual reasoning based in, reality and planet Earth and everything. For me, all that stuff. I was playing Madden. I moved my quarterback from College Football 25 over to Madden and got drafted by the Falcons. And, dude, Drake London, crushing it, man. Crushing it. So, and then I was looking up Darnell Mooney, like, who's he with? Anyway, I think they are fantastic. I think they're both very young, so I think it ages even better, too. I know we weren't really talking about potential necessarily, but I think these guys are stellar. There might be better wide receivers out there. There probably are, but I like them as a duo a lot.
All right, I like it. My list, I already gave you my 5, but I'll get into the reason why they're my 5 when I get to my number 5. So same as you guys with my number 1, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I mean, you got to put him first. I don't think there's any really debate about that. You got to put him at number 1. Number 2, I have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Number 3, I have St. Brown and Williams from the Lions. And then number 4, I have CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, same as Will. The reason I have them, I wanted to put them higher, but the reason I have them at 4 is because I had to put CeeDee Lamb in there because I think he's the 3rd best receiver in the NFL. So I had to put him in there. And George Pickens was a number one on his team, and he's coming over to Dallas to play with the third best receiver in the NFL. Now, I put him at 4, and I did put him higher than that because they haven't played together. We haven't seen what they can do together. And so I want to see what they can do together before I put him higher than that. But for me personally, I had to put CeeDee Lamb on here with George Pickens because the Cowboys now have 2 number 1 wide receivers. Number 5, Drake London and Darnell Mooney. This is based off of stats. My list is kind of stat-based, as pretty much everything else that I do is. So Drake London was one of 8 receivers in the NFL last year who had 100 or more catches. He was 4th in receiving yards. He had 9 touchdowns. And then total in the NFL, there were 24 players who had 1,000 receiving yards. 3 of those were tight ends. So 21 wide receivers had 1,000 yards. The next guy down, so the first guy who didn't have 1,000 yards is Darnell Mooney. He had 992. And so the stats speak for themselves. I know a lot of people are probably don't think that they should be in the top 5. A lot of people are going to put Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams in there. I'm actually surprised that neither of you guys said them.
They're on my honorable mention list.
I had him at 6.
I also have them at 6.
I'd put Devonta Adams in the overrated category. I think he's declining. I think he's got very little shelf life.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
That was my reason, at least, for not considering him.
I'm not going to disagree with that. So, yeah, I just think they're a very underrated pair of receivers. And, a lot of people could say, like, oh, well, the Falcons were always losing, so they had to throw the ball a lot. So, of course, their stats are going to be elevated. You could say the same thing about Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely you can.
You could say the exact same thing. And so
Will was nodding there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually taken all my clothes off, so
That camera better not come back on.
it doesn't come back on.
The camera just comes back on right at that moment.
Oh man, I hope not.
So, yeah, the stats speak for themselves. They're a great pair of receivers, and I feel like nobody really talks about them, but I think they deserve to be on this list. One other thing I want to say, just to go back to St. Brown and Williams for the Lions, there was only one team that had 2 wide receivers have 1,000 yards, and it was the Lions. The Raiders had 2 pass catchers to have 1,000 yards, but one of them was a tight end. So there's only one team to have 2 wide receivers have 1,000 yards, so that I had to put them on my list because of that.
That's honestly such a flex, though. Only one other team had 2 receivers and 1,000. Another team had a receiver and a tight end have 1,000.
With garbage quarterback play.
Yeah. Really just says more about Brock Bowers than anything.
Brock Bowers is what the Falcons wanted Kyle Pitts to be, and he just never was.
Oh, was Kyle Pitts going to be on your list? Because he's overrated.
Definitely overrated. We know that guy.
Dude, I didn't realize he was the highest ever tight end to be drafted. The highest tight end ever to be
He got
drafted.
drafted crazy high.
He was like 3rd or 4th. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and then
crazy.
he had a pretty good rookie season. He had over 1,000 yards. One fun stat here about Kyle Pitts. In each season he's played, he's increased his touchdown numbers by 1. So he had 1 touchdown his rookie year, 2 the next year, 3 the next year, and 4 last year.
Dude, guys just can't get in the end zone.
This year, he's going to have 5.
It might be worth drafting
Still
him
not
in
enough for
fantasy,
me to
then.
draft him in fantasy, but that's cool.
Maybe.
Yeah. Just know, if you have him in fantasy, he's going to have 5 touchdowns the whole season.
Yeah. He scores
He
those
has to
first in the first 2 weeks, drop him. Get someone else. He's about to have a season-ending injury.
All right, so one question I want to ask you guys to end here. I did not put A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith in my top 5. What do you guys think about that?
I think you're a Cowboys
You're
fan.
an idiot. Oh. No, I mean, it's fair, right? Like, it's a fair assessment.
It's because he doesn't like small guys like Devonta.
I don't know. I didn't put Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison in my top 5. So
I just felt like the Eagles are more of a rushing team. Like, it was more about their style of offense for me versus like who they are as receivers, because I think they're good receivers. It just, for me, like the way that my mind works in this with the statistics and all that is just more about like the style of offense that they play.
here's the thing. You put any of these guys that we've named, and you put a quarterback like Tom Brady, dare I say, on their team, they're going to win the Super Bowl, as we saw by Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You give an incredibly competent quarterback, any of these pairs that we've named from any team, you give them a competent quarterback, even Drake London and Darnell Mooney, crushed that, by the way. Got both their names right.
And you can't even see, dude. You're blind right now.
You can't even see. Yeah, I turned all the lights off in this room. That's actually what happened. I just turned all my lights off. Camera's fine. No, even the two young guys, you give them a competent quarterback, like a Tom Brady type, they're going to do well. Like if, not Sam Bradford, good golly, Matt Stafford, if he went to the Falcons and took those two youngins and taught them up, I think that would be exceptional. I just think that they're limited by quarterback play.
Yeah, that's definitely a fair argument. All right. Well, there you have our top 5 wide receiver duos. I think I'm going to try and post those on social media and have everybody rank them, and we'll see what they say. So that's all we have time for this week, but stay tuned for more NFL talk next week. We're going to talk a little bit about the Jets and Justin Fields, and if the Jets are better off with Justin Fields than they were with Aaron Rodgers. So stay tuned for that. And as always, don't forget to keep your balls played with. We'll see you next time.
Also, Mark Davis's haircut still sucks.